What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Zuniga Films Podcast. This is a more entrepreneurship-focused episode, yet still in the creative space. Now, if you like dessert as much as I do, I encourage you to keep listening because my next guest is Rachel Connors. She's the founder of Bakerita, a blog focusing on gluten-free, refined sugar-free, and dairy-free baked treats that she makes herself. In this episode, she shares why she started creating these recipes, how media plays a large role in her success, to now working with brands that align with her values and message. So without further ado, Rachel Connors. How's it going?
It's good. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So for all of you who don't know, this is Rachel. We've known each other since college.
Yeah.
I was in a fraternity, she was in a sorority, and I've been keeping track with what you were doing since college, and especially on Instagram because that's the easiest way of seeing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
you're most public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all this super good looking like baked goods. I don't know. Like I just want to eat my phone every time I see her Instagram. So I kind of want to start before we get into what you've been doing after college. Just I want to start with your dog Hank because because he's still a big part of your Instagram, right?
Oh, yes.
And also you like to travel as well. So what's the most recent place that you've traveled with Hank?
Oh, the most recent with Hank. Where have I gone? Oh, I just went to Joshua Tree.
Really?
And I brought him along. Yeah, and it was actually the first trip that I've brought him on. Usually he stays with my dad when I'm traveling. But I went on sort of just like a work vacation and rented out a house and brought him along. So we went hiking in the mornings.
Yeah.
And he was so much fun to have there.
Nice. So was that just like a spur of the moment type thing that you went to go and travel to?
Yeah, I think I planned it maybe like a week or two ahead of time, but just rented out a cool house and went to just go be inspired and have a change of scenery. So It was really fun. Yeah. Hank had the time of his life running around the backyard and exploring, picking out all sorts of new big sticks on our hikes.
Because that's the thing. He likes to walk around with different sticks.
Yep. He finds the biggest stick that he can find every day on our walks. And I always post it on my Instagram stories with Hank's stick of the day. And people love it. I also have a story highlight that people will tell me. They're like, I just go on to watch your story highlight of all of Hank's stick of the days. And it's just a highlights reel of Hank carrying around sticks that are usually like twice as big as he is.
That is so funny. Because I've watched some of that and it's like, it's a different stick every single time. It seems to get bigger every single time.
Yep.
I don't know how, but it's funny because he's such a small dog and with a big stick, like hitting stuff and whatnot. But that's so funny.
Yeah, he's a character for sure.
Yeah, and I know you were talking about going to Joshua Tree, trying to change the scenery, get inspired, things like that. I want to touch upon that later in terms of creativity and what gets you inspired. But now I kind of want to talk about Puget Sound.
Throwback.
Throwback. Going there. And did you start baking there or was that before?
So I actually started my site the summer before my senior year of high school. And it was essentially like my online diary. I was going through some hard stuff and just needed a creative outlet. And so I started baking a lot. My sister loved to read food blogs. I had never even heard of them because it was back before Instagram or Pinterest even existed. So I just I started messing with recipes and sort of developing my own. And my sister was like, you should put this on a website and start a blog. So I put it up, never promoting it or really expecting anyone to see it. It was just my outlet and what made me happy to do. And as I started looking for colleges, I was like, there's no way that I want to stop doing this. So when I visited, I would be like, do your freshman dorms have kitchens?
Yeah.
So I need somewhere with an oven. And Puget Sound obviously had ovens. And I literally brought so much of my baking stuff with me to the freshman dorms and would carry down my basket with all my pans and flour and all my ingredients and just managed to keep it up all through college. And it was always just my outlet. I would we'd go out to a party and everyone would go to sleep so late, and I'd be up at like 6 a.m. baking, and all my housemates would wake up to like muffins and cookies. Like when
good for them, right?
Yeah, they would be waking up at noon, and I'd have already like made all this stuff. They'd wake up to like wonderful smells.
Wow.
So
I bet your sorority just smelled like Christmas
all
every
the
single time.
Yep.
That's
they loved
awesome.
it.
So, I mean, you kept that up throughout college.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how did you do that? I mean, obviously we were packed with work and essays and tests and all that stuff.
Totally.
I mean, did you find time mostly during the weekends, during the days, weekdays?
I definitely did a lot of stuff on the weekends. It was hardest my freshman year, obviously, because I couldn't really photograph in the dorms. So during like that first year, I would do a lot of work when I went home for the holidays and like photograph stuff. But yeah, through the years, it was still my outlet. So I just like to write, and I like to take my photos and post stuff on my site. And it was never something that seemed like work. It was just my hobby. So like where other people like were in sports, I didn't play any sports. So like that's where my time went beyond doing my work. So I would finish all my schoolwork and like be excited to be done so that I could go bake. And yeah, I loved it. So I made time for it. And I've always heard a lot of people talking about like when they get busy, they're like, I don't want to do my blog anymore. It feels like a chore. And I've really never had that experience. Like it's honestly never even crossed my mind to be like, I should stop doing this, because it's something that just brings me so much joy to be able to share with people.
Yeah. So. That's awesome. Because
I
mean, when it's something that you like really like to do, it doesn't really feel like work, right?
Exactly. That's what I always tell people who like want to start blogs. I'm like, make sure you're not just getting into it for the money and like thinking that this is something that you're going to monetize. Like get into it because you really love it and it's something that you want to share with the world, and that will come back to you in money eventually. But if that's your intention, people will be able to see right through that. And people won't want to give you the support when they see that you're just like monetizing from the get-go, taking whatever sponsorships you can get, because that really dilutes your brand and makes it so it doesn't feel as authentic as if you're really doing it because it's something that makes you genuinely happy.
Right. And that's more like a long-term play, you know, because it's not gonna, it's not quick cash or anything. Yeah. Because you have to kind of perfect your craft over time and a lot of trial and error and all that stuff. But, as long as you know that's what you like to do, keep going at it. I mean, it might change, but, that's why I hear a lot of people get discouraged right away and they keep jumping from one thing to the next. Yeah. But they don't really get anywhere. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's good you stayed with it, because from what I've seen, each pastry, each dish just keeps getting better and better.
Thank you.
Yeah. So back to college, just real briefly.
Yeah, of course.
What are the pros and cons?
Of going to college?
Especially nowadays, because some people don't want to go to college. They do want to go to college. I mean, what's your take on that?
So for me, I think it was kind of expected where I grew up that you would go to college. So it never really crossed my mind that I wouldn't. And I wouldn't say that Bakerita was in a place that I would have felt comfortable like doing that full time straight out of college. So I had always wanted to go to college to study business. And as I went through school, I tried to take more entrepreneurial classes as I realized that there's something that I could be interested in. And like, our school was so small that you really like got to know your professors, and they were really supportive. So like my thesis professor, I took classes about entrepreneurship, and she encouraged me to do Bakerita. And like I talked to her about going full time, and she was like, I think that's a great idea. So for me, like being in an environment that really cultivated creativity and they encouraged me to do my own thing and like gave me projects that would support that, it sort of enabled me to have the confidence to go forward and do something like this full time. But on the flip side, if you're really good at something and you know that you want to make that your career, and going to college doesn't feel like it's the right fit and it wouldn't be supportive for you, then I don't think it's necessary in this day of age. And like if I had been 4 years ahead in Bakerita, if I had started it when I was like 13 instead of 16, I maybe would have felt like I was in that place that I didn't have to go. But for me personally, I felt like it sort of gave me the confidence to be able to do it full time, especially since I was going with a business degree, which actually people are like, oh, so your degree is useless. And I'm like, no, actually, I had to take law and ethics. And now I know how to set myself up as an LLC, and I can read through a contract with confidence that they're not pulling one over on me. And I understand like all these business mechanisms that help me run my business way more efficiently than if I had never taken classes like that.
Right.
So it's really like helped support me in growing my business. A lot of my college experiences. So
yeah, because for the students that are in high school that I speak to, when they say, "Oh, I want to major in this, major in that," I do, advise them to take some sort of business course, because they can still minor in a business course, right? And at least get some experience, because everything is business related.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, the good thing is, I mean, especially for our school, I think the size of the school helped a little bit.
Totally. Yeah. I liked being in a small school, and our school was actually smaller than my high school, which is kind of wild. Like in my high school, we would have classes of like 50 students.
Yeah.
At Puget Sound, I don't think I ever had one that was more than like 32. And that was such a big class that they brought in a second professor to help support. So it was just like, our school was very unique in that sense of being so small. But yeah, it's a great environment to help support. Like, they were able to give you more individualized support based on your interests. I don't know if you experienced that too with like your filming and having
Did you take
them
Lynette
that
for entrepreneurship?
Yeah,
okay, yeah. Shout out to Lynette
Claire.
Best entrepreneurship teacher at UPS.
Absolutely.
I think anywhere else. But it was really interactive, and I liked that, especially from the classes. And I mean, just outside even entrepreneurship itself, the other classes were good because the size, it allowed you to have a more in-depth, I guess, experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's also good too. I mean, if a student is looking to go to a college that is a little bit smaller in size, I think it has an advantages, because you're able to get your name out there a little bit faster, and a little bit easier, rather than like a big, huge college would. I mean, did you experience that at all? Like with, starting your, especially Instagram or Bakerita at the time?
Yeah, I found a lot of support like from the community. Obviously being in a sorority helped, because it was like a group of girls that were like almost obligated to like support what I was doing. I'm sure it didn't hurt that I would bring cookies and brownies to chapter.
Oh yeah, right.
But yeah, having the support system of a small school was so beneficial for me. And yeah, I loved my time at Puget Sound, and I hadn't even planned on going there initially. I was going to go to Vanderbilt. Okay. And my whole family was like, oh, Vanderbilt's like such a like name brand kind of school. And I visited both of them, and I was like, that just didn't feel like a good fit for me. And Puget Sound felt like the kind of place that would support my creativity and support what I was interested in a way that I didn't really get that sort of like warmth from Vanderbilt. So nothing against Vanderbilt, but Puget Sound was just like a better fit for me. Yeah. And I found it to really support my growth.
Nice. Yeah, because it varies per person.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Each person, you can't say one college is for a specific person.
Because I'm sure so many people would go crazy being in a school that's as small as ours.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not for everyone.
No, definitely not.
But I do enjoy the experience, and I haven't, regretted it. So.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. So fast forward after graduation, how did you kind of turn this into a full-time business, being Bakerita? Well, first of all, how did you come up with the name Bakerita?
So the name Bakerita was the result of like so many hours of my family sitting each like on our computers and phones and like typing things into a domain search. I wish it was a better story than that. But I had like a Tumblr blog that was like, I think like Rachel Bakes, something super boring. And someone told me, they're like, my sister's friend came over and he's like, you need a domain, like I'll set it all up, but you just need to come up with a domain name.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. And I liked the idea of having like a one word sort of like title as opposed to like a couple words strung together. So I was like, let's just make up a word because that will probably be the easiest to get a domain for. So we came up with a million things. And then one day, I think it was my dad's girlfriend at the time, was like, how about Bakerita? And we all really liked that. And we looked it up and it was taken. And so I think I said, like, what about Bakerita? And we were all like, that totally works because Ida in I'm half Hispanic. So Ida in Spanish means little. And I'm 5 foot tall. Yeah. So
it was meant to be.
It kind of translates to like the little baker with a lot of creativity.
Yeah, there you go.
But we all loved it. So
that's awesome.
That's how Bakerita came to be.
I mean, that's one way of going about it. I mean, different... There's different ways. I mean, but I think it's a great, unique story in itself.
Not the most exciting, but
hey,
it turned out a great name that people remember. And it's like, it's a little, I don't know. I feel like there's so many like running and cupcakes and like just blogs that are just sort of like words put together that you could easily forget like one or the other. Whereas Bakerita, it's like short, to the point, does the job.
Right. Simple. Easy. So how did you turn Bakerita into a business? I mean, you moved back down here to San Diego after UPS. So what happened from there?
So I actually stayed in Seattle for a little less than a year, I think, after graduation. But when I graduated, I had a job offer from a company I had worked for the summer before. And I was making a little bit of money from Bakerita. And my dad was very much like, if you ever want to do this full time, right now is the time to try, because you have like no dependents, you have no loss of income from having to quit another job, which is the scariest thing for a lot of people, is like you're leaving this well-paying, steady job to go do something that you have no idea where your next paycheck is going to come from. So I was making like just enough to cover my rent. And my dad was very generous and was like, if you need help, I'll help you for the first 3 months, and then you're on your own. And if you can't support yourself after that, then you get a job. So I was like, all right, I'll try it out and we'll see how it goes. And like, I immediately just started hustling and started contacting brands and getting like my site more optimized for ads and just figuring things out to try and maximize my revenue. And at that point, I think I had around like 20,000 followers on Instagram, wasn't getting nearly as many views to my site as I do now. But I never had to ask my dad for help. I just made it work. And when I graduated from college, my site sort of evolved, because before that I had been doing a lot of just like standard traditional baking. And then my sister and my dad both went gluten-free. So I started experimenting with gluten-free and more paleo baking, which is grain-free and refined sugar-free, and some vegan stuff, just sort of like experimenting with all these different kinds of baking. And my site was sort of just like a mishmash of all of it. So I had like this really unhealthy stuff mixed in with stuff that was gluten-free and refined sugar-free. And after I graduated, I was sort of able to focus that more. And I went gluten-free myself, so I stopped baking with gluten entirely. And then like a year later, when I moved to San Diego, I ended up going dairy-free too. And sort of just like along with that, I ended up cutting out refined sugars in my baking, sort of just to like see if I could. And as I narrowed my niche, it wasn't even so much on purpose, but so many more people started finding my site. And as I started posting like solely stuff that was gluten-free and dairy-free, they'd be like, oh, this is a website where I can go and find a chocolate chip cookie that tastes really good and is free of all this stuff that like my sister can't eat dairy, my dad can't eat gluten. So it's something that everyone in the family can enjoy. And I have like such a sweet tooth that it was always my goal to be like, if this thing's going to be gluten-free and dairy-free and refined sugar-free, it has to taste just as good as the original.
Right.
So that ended up with lots of recipe testing and just doing a lot of work to figure out how I could like make these things that were reliably really good without sacrificing any taste and still keeping them on the healthy side. So definitely making it into a full-time business like relied a lot on me finding that niche, and it took a while to get there.
Yeah.
But as I've narrowed it more, my audience has grown, which seems kind of counterintuitive to people who aren't in the industry. But it's people like to find something that almost feels like it's geared specifically towards them and what their diet is or what their son's diet is. Because I have a lot of like moms who are like, my son can't eat anything. He was like born with all these allergies. And so they want something that they can feed to their son, but they can also feed to their daughter who eats everything, and everyone will still be able to enjoy it. So it's been really interesting sort of finding that group of people and being able to connect with them and feel like I'm adding value to their lives.
Yeah. So basically, you finding your niche kind of came out of necessity in a way because you like baking, but you also wanted to bake for your family, who, you know, went gluten-free and so on. So that kind of meshed together. And you had to experiment a lot, right, for your recipes, even up to now. I mean, how did that process work in terms of experimenting with recipes and creating? Yeah,
so I have like a big notebook full of just like lists of recipes of things I want to create. But when I first sort of start with like, if I want to do like a chocolate cupcake, a lot of times I'll go back to like my favorite chocolate cupcake recipe that I used to make when I was eating all the things. And I'll sort of take that base, because I know it works with gluten and butter, and I'll sub in things that are the healthier alternative. So like coconut oil or almond flour or tapioca flour and coconut sugar. And I'll see how that goes and be like, okay, that sunk too much in the middle. I need to increase the amount of flour, increase the amount of baking soda. And so I just sort of test a lot from there. And I'm a total perfectionist, so I want things to be like just so, which is a lot harder to do with gluten-free and dairy-free baking than it is with traditional baking. And there's not a lot of resources for developing the kinds of recipes that I do. There's all sorts of books about developing recipes, but none of them really address my specific type of baking. So it's up to me to sort of figure it out on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you really narrowed it down to like a specific niche, like not just like broad. It started off broad, experimented a little bit, and then now you like found the point to where, you know, you have a big enough audience that's growing and it's really engaged with what you're, you know, putting out there.
Yep, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it definitely came out of necessity. Like I mentioned, my sister and my dad were gluten-free, and I think a year after I graduated from college, when I started eating more healthily too, my sister got diagnosed with Lyme disease.
Oh, okay.
And one of the holistic ways to treat that is to cut out all gluten, all dairy, all refined sugars, to try and like starve it out of your system, essentially. So she was just like begging me to make her something that she could eat, because she like would eat vegetables and meat, and that was about it. So she was like, please figure out something that I can eat that's like delicious. So I developed a recipe for like a sugar-free, gluten-free, dairy-free banana bread that she could eat. And so that sort of was like getting that right, like sort of spurred me on to create these other things, because it helped me realize what was possible in that realm of baking, which before I had just sort of like shrugged it off. Like there's no way that any of that stuff could be delicious if it's free of all the delicious things.
And I mean, it's fairly new in a way, like using different alternatives to the traditional food that, you know, we've been cooking with. And I think that's a really cool twist that you've put onto like baking. It's fun. I really enjoy the challenge of creating something that's different and the challenge of making it taste good. Right. That's not always the case. Yeah, that's a challenge in itself. It's a whole experimentation process.
And convincing people that it is delicious, even if it's free of all the things.
Oh, that's a whole nother hurdle.
Oh, yeah, a whole nother story. Yeah. A lot of times I just won't tell people. Like, I'm just like, here, have a cookie. And they're like, that's great. But if I had been like, here, have a gluten-free vegan cookie, they're like, ooh. Right. And they get it into their heads that it's not going to be good.
They think it tastes like...
based on what they know about something being gluten-free and vegan.
Yeah. Like they think it tastes like broccoli or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
It's like cookie discrimination.
Yeah. But if it looks as good as it tastes, then
I have so many people who will be like, yeah, I made a batch of your cookies and I just didn't tell anyone that they were like free of all the things. And they're like, I had all the kids running up to me telling me they were the best cookies that they've ever had. I'm like, all right, when I can get like the little kids who are like on their sugar high to be stoked on a paleo cookie, like such a win.
Yeah, you won, definitely.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to like the business side, I know we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
How did you, because like you're starting to make more, I guess, different types of baked goods. You're experimenting. You have your website. How do you specifically monetize at this point?
Yeah. So a lot of my monetization in the beginning and now is ad revenue on my site, which just like people coming to get my recipes from Instagram or Pinterest or wherever it is. They'll be shown ads on my site, just display ads, pretty standard internet advertising. And then I'll also work with brands to develop recipes for them to put on my site. So like I work with Bob's Red Mill, which they create a lot of like alternative flours. So they'll do like almond flour and tapioca flour. So I'll create a recipe using their products and post on my site that this is specifically what I used, why I prefer this brand to another brand, and they'll pay me for that. It's essentially advertising.
Like a sponsor.
Just native advertising. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they're sponsored posts, and I am pretty picky about who I work with because I always want it to stay authentic. And so I'll get a lot of offers for things, but if they're not in line with what I think my audience will like and what I genuinely like, then I'm not going to work with them. So that's sort of a point where it can be hard while you're growing to narrow that, because I had like a big chocolate company reach out to me and they had a lot of money to spend. And so they're offering me like way more than like these smaller gluten-free brands can offer me, but it's not in line with what my site represents. So I have to turn that down just for like my own peace of mind that I'm not selling out. So that can be hard at times, especially like in my fields where a lot of the brands are sort of smaller and growing. But it makes me feel a lot better about what I'm doing, that I'm not going to be like, I'll promote whatever you want as long as you pay me enough money, because I never want to lose that trust with my followers and with my community. Yeah,
that's a very important point. I like that point, because when you're starting out, and whether it be looking for clients or whether it be getting sponsors, like you kind of have that urge that you want to get everything that comes at you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it doesn't align with what you stand for, it's in the long run, if you know how to say no to other things, like you did, it really helps out in the long run.
Yeah. And I'm of the mindset that like when you say no to something and you sort of have that strength in yourself to say no to something that you know isn't the right move for you, that will sort of open up doors to the things that are correct, because you're willing to take a stand on what you're not willing to do, which shows people that you have the confidence and the willingness to work with the right people, and that you're not gonna sell out for the people who don't align with your vision and your brand and your morals, whatever it is. So and I'm sure it could be the same with clients that you're working with in film. So
it's and I think you also get more respect that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because people see that you're genuine and like you genuinely, want this and you don't want that, and it's something that you stand for. So especially like your audience too. And that I'm glad that you said that you're doing it for your audience and the people that follow you and use your recipes, because if you don't, then I mean, they can see through that.
They can see right through it. Yeah. If I post like for some gluten crackers, they're going to be like, oh, they must be paying her a lot of money because this is something she would never eat.
Right.
And that just diminishes the trust. And the more you do it, like the less people will be willing to listen to what you have to say. And as an influencer, that's really all you, like, that's your currency and how you connect with people. So
yeah,
I think it's important to just be very authentic and true to what you believe.
Right. Especially with social media nowadays.
Definitely. It's like so easy to get caught up and
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially the ones that are more authentic and genuine, you know, I see a lot more engagement
Definitely.
with those people on social media. I mean, speaking of Instagram, I mean, you've grown your following a lot over the years. What do you think has helped you in terms of your growth and engagement with you know, social media, like app like Instagram?
So I say that like consistency is a huge part of it. Like I try and post every day. For a while, I was trying to post like twice a day, and just having really quality content. Like if I don't have something good to post, I won't, because I'd rather not post than post something that's gonna make my page look bad, or that it's like not up to the standards, because people will honestly see a post that they don't want to see from you and they're like, oh, that's not why I follow her, and unfollow. So it's like being really like in tune with what your followers are looking for. I spend a lot of time like looking at like the analytics on Instagram and seeing when people are online and seeing what content people are engaging with the most, and then creating more content that's similar to that. And that's definitely helped me build my brand. And like, if you want to post random stuff, like make a personal account. But I think having a business account that's like really caters to your followers is very important. Because that's how you serve your community. Especially for me, Instagram is my main community builder. That's where I connect with people. So I put like my life on my stories. Like I put Hank running around with his sticks and like me drinking my coffee in the morning. And like that's how people connect with me. And that's like, they can opt in to watch my stories if they want to see that part of my life. But I know on my page, they want to see a drool-worthy photo of a dessert. Right. So that's what I'm going to give them, because that's what they want to see. And people have been asking recently for more savory. So I'm like, all right, I'll give you some savory. And like, people are responding to that because they asked for it. But like, if I had just started posting all this random savory food that no one wanted, it wouldn't perform as well. So I try to be very in tune with what my community wants. And I think that's been a big factor in how my Instagram has grown and how like my community sort of feels connected to me, and that they know I'm going to give them what they want and I'm going to listen to their feedback. And I respond to every single Instagram message that I get, which I know a lot of people don't. And I'll see readers like getting mad on someone's comment section because they're like, oh, she doesn't respond to DMs. And they get like annoyed because it makes it feel like there's sort of a disconnect between the person posting and like their community. And I never want the people who follow me to feel like they're just like my followers and like I could have as many as I want and like they're just numbers. I want them to feel like they're my friends and like I will listen to what they have to say. And I think that's important. And it definitely gets to a point where it can be overwhelming, the amount of DMs that you might be getting when you grow your following to a certain amount. But I think it's very important to make people feel like they're being heard. So whatever way you can do that, I think is very helpful and makes people feel a lot more connected to what you're doing. Right.
Because with social media, from what I've noticed, is that it's great with communication. And if you really like utilize the communication aspect of it, you can really grow a strong community.
Definitely.
And like, yeah, it's hard to, you know, try to answer as many DMs and comments as possible. But for the most part, if people see that you're doing that, right? Like, I mean, they know that you are human. You know, you're not just fake. You're not just there trying to get followers, but you're there to actually help and create kind of a conversation around what you're doing, you know, in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes it feel like there's a real human behind it who doesn't think that like they're better than all the people who are around them. Because like I'm just a girl who like sits in my house alone most of the day, like making treats. Like just because I have like a lot of followers on Instagram, like doesn't make me feel like I'm any better than the person who messaged me who was 100 followers. Like there's no difference between us except for I take pictures and post them on the internet.
Right.
And I'm sure there's people who are way better bakers and way better photographers than I am who are out there. They're just not putting it out there the way that I am. So it's just like I've chosen to make this into my career. So yeah, I don't want people to feel like there's like this separation between the people they follow on social media and themselves.
And also, there's some people that I talk to that are younger and they're in the creative space and they are kind of afraid of putting their art or what they do out there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that differentiates the ones that are known from the ones that are not known is just putting it out there, even in the beginning when they feel it's not the best.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still room to improve.
Totally.
I mean, did you feel that in the beginning? Like you were kind of hesitant of putting your, I guess, art out there in a way, like on social media.
Yeah.
How did you get through that?
Yeah, it's very easy to get yourself into like the comparison trap when you start posting content anywhere, because you can sit and like I can see other food photographers, you can see other videos and be like, how do I get that shot that they just did, or like whatever it is. I can't style that well, I don't have such beautiful plates, whatever it is. So instead of sort of looking at it from that perspective, if there's someone who I'm like, seeing your stuff makes me sad because I don't think I'm ever going to be that good, I'll just unfollow them so that I don't have to see it. But what I try to do now is look at it and be like, why is this something that makes me feel inadequate? And what can I do to sort of improve my work to reflect that, or sort of target the thing that I love about that work that makes mine not feel as good, and learn it, like try to replicate it and be like, I love the way that their lighting is, so I'm going to try and recreate that. Or on the other hand, to just respect that that's their style and that you have your own style, and there's no need to compare the two because there's enough room in the content world for all of it. And there's people who will resonate with yours and there's people who will resonate with theirs, and that there's billions of people on this planet and there's enough people to consume all the types of content that people are willing to create.
Yeah.
So people like get nervous. They're like, I don't want to start a blog, or I don't want to start making videos because there's so much out there already. But there's also so many people who are looking for it. And so many people who, like, it's not like you go on Instagram and you follow one person. Like you go and follow a ton of people because they all inspire you. So there's always room for more inspiration in people's life, I think. And comparing yourself to other people really doesn't benefit anyone. Right. So you just need to look at it a perspective of like, how can me comparing myself to them, or how can me admiring their work better myself and better my work and my content, without needing it to be a negative thing that makes you feel like discouraged and sad.
Yeah. So basically what I got out of that is that instead of running away from it, you face it, and you look into yourself and like, why does that make you feel that certain way, and how can you differentiate and, maybe even make it better in a sense. I like that. That's a great tip. How did you kind of form your style throughout the years?
So just a lot of experimenting. I never even really took like photography classes or anything. A lot of what I did was honestly look at other people's and be like, what do I like about this? And I'm like, I noticed that I prefer when something has a lot of props, or like looks a little more like filled. Like I don't like such minimalist photos. And so that's something I noticed when looking at other people's work and being like, okay, how can I incorporate that into my work while maintaining my own style? So it was just sort of like seeing something that inspires me online or in the real world, and even like from art, or like seeing a cool plant, like my apartment's filled with plants, because like
it is.
they inspire me like structurally and like how they'll look in comparison to each other. So just finding things out in the world that sort of like, I'm like, that would look cool styled like this, and just sort of like recreating it and experimenting. Like I'll be in the middle of a shoot and be like, I don't like how this is looking, and I'll scrap it and redo the entire thing until I'm happy with the way that it's presenting. And you know all about editing. So like the magic of editing also makes such a huge difference in photos and in videos.
Right.
So style curation, it's very interesting. I'm constantly getting inspired. I'll look back on my photos even from 6 months ago and see my style have evolved since then. So I think it's something that's always in progress, always evolving, and really is like a reflection of my surroundings. So
speaking of photography, you never took a photography course or anything. I mean, YouTube is the best way. Did you use YouTube?
I watched YouTube tutorials, and like I actually just took a photography course like a couple months ago because I was like, I should know what like all these buttons on my camera, like what they're actually called. Because I like figured out how to scroll through my aperture and like adjust all these things, but I didn't really know like the actual techniques behind it. So I just recently took a photography course. Probably should have done that a lot longer ago. But
that's okay.
But yeah, it was definitely just like YouTube, reading some photography blogs, but it was mostly just trial and error to see what worked, to see like what looked good. And I'm a big proponent of trial and error. That's just the easiest way for me to learn. And I know everyone's different. Some people can sit down and read a photography book and pick up the camera and know what to do. And I'm just a more hands-on learner. So I prefer to just like get out and do it. And figure it out as I go. Yeah,
sometimes that's the best way of doing it too. You know, I mean, you get to see what works for you, and I think also too, you not having a photography background initially, I think that kind of helped your creativity. I mean, would you say that helped your creativity?
Yeah, I think so, because it's like almost having too much information. You could be like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to do the shot, and like having this sort of like set system for how you're going to do something can almost inhibit creativity sometimes because you're like, this is how it's going to be the right way. Right. And there's no right way. It's just what you think looks good and what your community responds to, or like whatever you're using your content for. Like as long as the person it's being created for is happy, whether that's you or a client or your community, there's no right or wrong as long as it connects with people and makes people feel something, whether that's hungry or sad or happy.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as it connects with them. So with your photos, they're very engaging because I mean they look really great. For you, like, what goes into making a great photo, especially for food?
Yeah. So I'm like a big fan of creating like I don't even know how to describe it, but sort of like the details that really pull you in. So if I'm doing something with melted chocolate, I want to have like a chunk of melted chocolate that you can see that you're like, that cookie just came out of the oven, and you can just like envision yourself grabbing into the screen to like take a bite of that cookie. Just something that really like I just said, like that makes you feel an emotion, and that like makes you want it right now. Like just creates a sense of urgency. And like, so I love doing like close-up shots of stuff and stuff that really like sort of draws you into the scene. And a lot of that can be like compositional too, and doing sprinkles of chocolate on the side so you can see like what's in the recipe if you can't see that there's whatever dried cranberries or nuts in it, to like sprinkle them on the side so you can get a feel for what that dessert is going to be like and taste like when you have it and make it for yourself.
Interesting. So it's not just like the dessert in itself, it's like also adding different elements. It's subtle, but you still get that feel of like what's in it. And
it almost like creates like a story around the food.
I see.
So different than like you creating a story on film. But I try to like
that's easier.
Capture my little microcosm of a story.
I think trying to show a story through a photo is a little bit harder because it's just like one still frame. But it's like the different elements within it that kind of bring it to life. And I think that's an art in itself, you know, trying to, you know, really make the photo engaging.
And a lot of times that it's like can be creating movement, which is similar to like video, but it's like me taking like a thing of caramel sauce and like drizzling it over a cake or a pie and you can like see my hand in it. So it gives you that feel of like serving this and like how this is going to be in your life, and like, oh, you can like put the caramel sauce all over this cake, and you like see it dripping down. So it creates this scene almost in your head, and you can like imagine yourself like pouring the caramel sauce over it like while you have Thanksgiving dinner with your family. So I just like to create that feeling of that you can do this too. And one thing that sometimes people, they're like, mine didn't turn out as pretty as yours. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I spent 30 minutes like like messing with the chocolate chip with a toothpick so that like the chocolate fell that certain way.
There's a lot that goes behind the scenes that they don't see.
It's like in my time of doing this, I've also become like a food stylist, which is like a whole nother thing in and of itself. But it's pretty funny because people will be like, my cake doesn't look exactly like yours. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's like editing and angles and like everything that goes into like creating that shot to create the mood that I wanted you to feel. So
what do you use to edit? Lightroom?
Yeah. I use Lightroom. Nice. Occasionally Photoshop, but usually just Lightroom.
That's usually like the go-to one.
It's just like the most intuitive. I feel like it's pretty simple to work with once you get the hang of the basics.
Now, did you that was like self-taught as well with Lightroom? For
the most part. I definitely like just watch like YouTube videos and a couple things to just figure out the basics. I've always been pretty computer savvy, so I mostly just figured out how to do most of it on myself. But I definitely read some articles to get me started and help that along.
And I like how did you have to pay for that course for photography?
The one I took recently I paid for. And that one was helpful. It's called the foodtography course. So it's specifically for food. Which was very helpful because she goes through like how to light things in the right way. And I thought it was really helpful to have one that was like specific for what I wanted to learn about.
That's a good point because I think investing in yourself is also an important aspect, especially when you're running a business.
Totally.
Or even if you're not running a business, but because you saw that this is important in order to enhance your craft and to make your photos much better. And it's just like school, like you're investing in school in a way, but it's more specific to what you're doing. And I think that's a very important point that you brought up, because investing in yourself, will really like advance you. I mean, you might feel like, okay, I'm paying this much for it, but in the long run, it's like, what's your end goal that you're trying to achieve? And that's helping you get to where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like investing in yourself is something that sort of is invaluable. Like will last for the rest of your life. Like teaching yourself how to do something will last forever as opposed to like hiring someone who will do it for you for maybe that same price, but like you're not learning anything.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're teaching yourself how to do something and investing the time and effort into something that will benefit you and your business, like that's gold.
So when it comes to creativity, you like to, I know you said you went to Joshua Tree and you like to go out and travel. So does that kind of like help with your creativity? Like what helps get you inspired, and how do you stay inspired to create different things? Yeah,
so my apartment I've sort of like created to be an inspirational space for me, but like sometimes I just feel so stifled that I almost feel like I can't think differently when I'm waking up in the same space every day, and like I'm in a studio, so I like wake up and see my office.
I'm inspired right now.
So I always just want to, probably like about once a month, I'll try and just, even if it's going like an hour away, just getting out of town and going into nature and getting out of the space that I'm constantly surrounded by. I just want to have new surroundings because it changes my way of thinking and makes me think about things a little different. And I'll like see an evergreen tree and like have an idea for like a different kind of cake that I never would have thought of, like sitting in Hillcrest. And going and eating at different places is also something that's important for me. Like I'll go to a restaurant and like see this dessert on their menu and be like, okay, how can I recreate that but a gluten-free vegan version? So I get a lot of inspiration from like what other people create and other people's art and their creations. So I just like to expand my horizons pretty frequently so that I can see that inspiration and have some new surroundings. I'm like very much a person who takes in a lot of what I'm surrounded by. So I know some people can like sit with their eyes closed and like be flooded with creativity. I'm not really one of those people most of the time.
Right. I mean, I think that comes also too with like creatives that like, I feel like for the most part from the people I've talked to, they usually tend to go out and just go to a different environment rather than like stay in like the same environment, because they say that they're able to, you know, be more creative. Something might just pop in their head at that moment. You know, and I think that's very important. I mean, even if someone is not in like a creative type of work, just going out there and experiencing different things, right? Because being confined is not the best thing to be doing. There's more out there, you know?
Totally. Staying in one place just like creates like a stagnant energy that doesn't really let like creativity flow in the way that even just going and like sitting on the beach, like we're so lucky that we live so close to it.
I'm not mad, you know?
Like just going and sitting in front of the ocean, like just like revives me and makes me think a little differently. So
there's something about the ocean.
Like
it's just like every wave is different. And just like, I don't know, the salt smell and all that stuff is I can't beat it.
It's just like invigorating.
It's awesome.
Definitely.
So I mean, you have to take advantage of that for sure.
Sorry to everyone who isn't close to the beach.
you can still make it out here to SoCal and try the beach out for yourself.
Definitely.
So the places that you travel to, is it just like spur of the moment, places that you want to, you know, help you get creative in a way? Like, how do you choose that?
A lot of it's just random. Like a couple last month, I think it was, I like went to Santa Fe, New Mexico to go to Meow Wolf, which is like this super weird, like, it's an art exhibit technically, but like not really. It's sort of like an immersive art experience. And I had just been like wanting to go for years. So I like told my boyfriend, I was like, let's go. Drove 12 hours to New Mexico to like go be in this like crazy weird place that almost feels like you're on like a psychedelic trip just being in this place, because it's just like all these crazy lights, and you go in there and you just like feel the creativity of the people who created it, because you're like, how does someone's brain go to this place? So I just try to travel to places that I know I'll like be inspired going to them, whether it's through something weird like Meow Wolf or being in the desert in Joshua Tree and just like seeing a different kind of landscape that I'm not used to, and going to like little ceramics shops and cool art galleries. So it's pretty spur of the moment most of my trips. Maybe like a couple weeks of planning, but I like to go to new places too. I'm not big on like going to the same places for vacation all the time. I want to explore as much of the world as I can, and a lot of times that will be reflected in what I create, because I'll go to somewhere like New Mexico. Like I just went to New Mexico and had like a Mexican hot chocolate, because they're all about like adding spice to everything. So I was like, oh my god, I need to make something with Mexican hot chocolate. So I came home and made like Mexican chocolate brownies that were like spiced and delicious, and probably not something I wouldn't have had, like that I wouldn't have thought of if I hadn't been like having all this spicy food in New Mexico and like seeing how much that permeated their culture.
Right.
So it's just going out into different places. Like we live in a big country, and like for so long I was focused on traveling outside of the country, and now I'm like, there's so many cool things to see here. I just need to like go explore America, because there's so many different like microcosms of food and culture, and I just get so inspired by my travels. I always end up with like a big list of recipes when I come back from my trips.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So speaking of your recipes, what's your favorite one?
Oh, that's so hard. Probably the one that I make the most often is my paleo chocolate chip cookies, which are like a grain-free chocolate chip cookie that is so good. I'm a big advocate for chocolate chunks too, instead of chocolate chips, because they melt better.
Yeah.
It's like a whole baking thing, but essentially chocolate chips have like waxes that don't let them really melt. But when you use chocolate chunks, you get like a drippy, melty chocolate that's so hard to beat.
That sounds so good right now.
And the dough is also really good.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps. But yeah, I would have to say those are probably up there. And that's what I tell like new people who are coming to my site for the first time. If they don't know what to make, I'm like, go for the chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
Because those are a favorite. I've had many people tell me that they're their favorite chocolate chip cookies of all time, like including
really
whole gluten sugared chocolate chip cookies, which I am so very proud of.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it tastes good and you feel good about it too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it has some nutrients instead of just making you want more cookies.
Exactly. So, what is like your why? Like, why do you continue to do what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it started out just as like my outlet, like I said before, and that's definitely still part of it. It's my creative outlet. But now that I've connected with so many people, I really like feel the need for this kind of baking. Like people tell me on Thanksgiving, they're like, I thought I would never have an apple pie again. They're like, and I made your grain-free vegan apple pie and like shared it with my whole family, and like they all loved it. And it was something that like me and my son, who are both grain-free, were both able to enjoy with them.
Yeah.
So it's like these people will get diagnoses for autoimmune diseases, or their son will be diagnosed with celiac disease and can't have gluten. And these people have to cut all these things out of their diet. And if they haven't been familiar with like healthier eating before that, it can feel really daunting and like really scary. And they're like, I'm never going to be able to have anything except for vegetables and meat ever again. Because if they haven't explored like that style of cooking and baking, it will feel like there's nothing out there for them. Especially with how a lot of restaurants are in most of the country. Like they just don't cater to that kind of eating.
Yeah.
So they'll find my site and be like, oh my God, like this is a whole new world of treats that I can eat and don't have to like feel bad about or think that it's gonna like give me a stomach ache or like mess with my medication or whatever it is. Like it really helps people to like feel like they're able to still indulge without messing up their whole diet or like cheating or whatever it is. So that just makes me really happy that there's like people, like even my grandma recently got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And she like went on a healthier eating plan, and she's like, I took a bite of a donut, like a regular donut. She goes, and my whole body felt inflamed. She's like, I didn't realize that even when you have like a disease like this, even the littlest thing can make you feel so much worse. So just giving people that freedom that they can have something that won't make them feel terrible. Like it makes me really happy and makes me, that's my why. That's like what I do is because hearing from those people seriously makes my day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, you're also helping solve a problem in these lives for these people. Yeah. And I think that's what business is also really about, you know, finding a problem and developing a solution to help, you know, fix that problem in a way.
Totally.
Yeah. And you're doing what you love at the same time.
Exactly.
So that also helps.
It's like a win all around. And like I've seen the problems firsthand, like seeing how my sister will like be itching for 4 days if she eats something with gluten in it. And it's like, it's such a detriment to so many people's lives. And so when they feel like there's nothing out there for them, it also makes you feel very isolated. If you're like, I can come to dinner, but I can't eat anything.
Right. Yeah.
And they just sit there by themselves. So like what I do, I feel like it sort of like empowers them to be able to like, I'll take care of dessert. And they'll bring something that everyone's going to enjoy that they can also indulge in.
Right.
That doesn't make them feel like they're an outsider because they have to eat in a certain specific way that's different than everyone else.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's great.
So for your younger self, what advice do you have now that you wish you would have known back then?
Oh, that's a good question. I would tell myself to just like keep doing the things that I loved, and to like focus on that and to not like get distracted by what I felt like other people were telling me what I should be doing. Like, 'cause even like my sister and my mom, who are two of my biggest supporters now, like they told me that I was crazy for not taking a stable job, for going off and doing something that wasn't going to give me a stable paycheck. And I'm so glad that I didn't listen to them, because it was like I knew I could do it. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but I knew that I would be way happier doing that than like doing social media for like a big company, that I wanted to do it for myself. And so just a reminder to like, you know what feels right for you, and to not let the people around you inflict what they think is right for you, because they don't know what you're really feeling and what you're really passionate about. And for a lot of people, I think it can be hard to stand up to the people around them and tell them like, no, this is what I want, especially when you're younger, when you're like 17, 18, or even 21, 22, graduating from college. It's easy for the people who have a lot of more life experience than you to tell you what they think you should do. And it's easy for you to get into your head and be like, oh, they must be right because they've been living for 30 more years than I have. But only you know what's right for you. And so to just listen to that and follow that path. And I'm happy that I told them, no, I'm not going to take that job.
Because you can always go back and get a job later on.
It was like, I knew that I would be able to get a job if I wanted one, but I wanted to take my opportunity to see if I could create my business for myself and create my income for myself. And there's one more job that's out on the job market because I didn't take it doing something that I didn't actually like. Yeah.
And especially because like you're young. Yeah. And so you have more time to, figure it out and see if it works. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And you don't really, I mean, I think at the same time, going all in is very important. And I think that's what you did too. Yeah. And I think also, knowing that there's like a backup plan at the same time. Yeah. But I think, the fact that you had your back against the wall, you had like the 3-month period to really figure it out and do what you wanted to do. Yeah. I think that gave a little bit more incentive for you to really push harder. Yeah. Because I think that's the best way of going about it, knowing that
sink or swim.
Sink or swim mentality. You have to survive. You're going to be more hungrier that way, right?
Totally.
So there's always going to be a backup plan. You can always find a job somewhere, but I think your passion, what you want to do, that should come first. Yeah. If possible.
Yeah, and even like when my dad told me, he's like, I'll help you. I was like, I don't want your help. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to not have to ask you for help because I want to be able to do this on my own. Right. So even though like I had my backup plan, even like the fact that he said that made me want to not have to ask him. Yeah. Like, I don't want to be in that position. So I'm going to work my butt off to make sure that I'm not.
Right. And that's awesome. I mean, like now you're here.
Now I'm here.
Yeah. So what's in it for the future? I know you talked to me earlier about, starting a book.
Yeah. I've just started working on a cookbook a couple months ago. I have a couple more months to finish it. And it will probably come out not for a long time. It's very delayed gratification writing a cookbook. But yeah, I'm writing a cookbook that's going to be all gluten-free, dairy-free, and refined sugar-free. So essentially just a reflection of my site, but mostly all new recipes with a couple favorites from my blog sprinkled in. And I'm going to be photographing the whole thing myself too. So awesome. It's a lot of work, but it's been so much fun and so exciting to create all new content. And I haven't actually even announced it. I've mentioned it, like sprinkled it in some comments responding to people asking about it, but it hasn't been fully announced. So this is the first time I'm talking about it.
Oh, nice.
Which is crazy. I'm still like, it's weird for me to have reached the point where I'm like, all right, this was my big goal was to write a cookbook. And now I'm 25 and I'm doing it.
There you go.
So I'm like, now I need to create my next big goal, but hopefully it's the first of a few cookbooks. So.
Oh yeah. I'm sure there's going to be more to come,
Yeah.
Later down the line.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So thanks again. I mean, that, having you on the podcast, having like a different perspective, especially in the entrepreneurial space, is awesome. I think, my audience is going to benefit from that, and hopefully your audience will benefit from that as well. So, thanks again for taking the time, and really
so
appreciate
for having me on.
Yeah.
It was lots of fun to chat and catch up.
Thanks again for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll be placing Rachel's social media links in the show notes so you can stay connected. And if you receive great content out of this episode and know someone that can benefit from it, please share it. So thanks again for joining in. And until next time, I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.